This is First Class Kevin Pandorf.
And I'm First Class Elijah Parent, and you're listening to Core Conversations, a podcast from the U.S. Coast Guard Academy Alumni Association, recorded here in Studio 1887 at the Alumni Center.
Today's episode features Greg Bernstein, class of 2011, a former Coast Guard officer turned venture capital leader and CEO, whose path has taken him from cutter tours and command to building a firm focused on some of the biggest industrial and technical challenges of our time.
What stands out about Greg's story isn't just where he ended up. It's how he approached every stage along the way. From launching new programs as a cadet to taking risks early in his career, his perspective is all about living intentionally and treating your time here and beyond as an opportunity to build something meaningful.
You'll hear Greg talk a lot about mindset, especially this idea of approaching life and the academy as an adventure, not in a cliche way, but in a very deliberate sense of pushing yourself, taking risk, and being open to paths you may never have planned.
This conversation is a reminder that a lot of the most important outcomes come from how you approach the experience, not just what you achieve on paper.
Before we jump into the episode, we wanted to take a minute to reflect on that.
Listening to Greg's story, what was one insight that really stuck with you, and how do you think it applies to how cadets are navigating the academy today?
One thing that really stuck with me was Greg's ability to give us the idea of living intentionally, not just going through the motions, but actively shaping your experience. So Elijah, what is one thing that stuck with you?
I think the thing that stuck with me the most from this podcast was he was talking about taking the academy seriously, but not taking yourself too seriously, which I think applies to pretty much everything. I think humility is one of the greatest virtues you can have as a cadet and a junior officer, and I think that applies very well. As you listen, think about how your own experience here is shaping you and what you're choosing to do with it.
Well, so here I would say it's easy to fall into routines, just check boxes. But for his perspective, it shows that you can either endure the academy or actually use it to your advantage.
Awesome, Kevin. Let's get into the episode.
This is First Class Kevin Pandorf, and you're listening to Core Conversations, a podcast of the United States Coast Guard Academy Alumni Association. I'm here in the Alumni Center, Studio 1887, with my co-host, Lieutenant Commander Nick Martin, and we're excited to welcome this episode's alumni guest, Mr. Greg Bernstein, class of 2011. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you.
So we're going to put you on the clock. In 1 minute, walk us through your career from Coast Guard ensign to where you are now. Ready? Go.
Let's see. Academy to Morgenthau. Three Giant of South tours. Then we sold Morgenthau or Jarvis. I can't remember. Transferred over to Jarvis that we sold to the Bangladeshi Navy. 87 Command after that. Special assignment, kind of, which we could talk about after that in D.C. Then I got out. Then grad school at Georgetown. Following, did a fellowship in Europe my first and second year. Then worked in geopolitics, kind of / politics for a presidential campaign. Then went back to Sweden, was in Sweden for 4 years, working at a private equity firm. Then joined their venture capital arm and came back, joined another venture fund firm where I built out my current firm. And now I'm the CEO of the New Industrial Corporation.
It's a long journey there.
It's been a long journey. Yeah. Continues to be long and fun.
So we're going to start at the beginning now. Because of the story of how you decided to come here is actually pretty memorable. Can you break that down and tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. I'm from Maryland originally, and lacrosse was kind of the main thing that I wasn't completely thinking about that, but I was touring schools and thinking about where I wanted to go and where I could play. I really hadn't thought about it too much. There was a guy from the class of 1950. I think he either called me or reached out through the school, through like the college. He connected me with the lacrosse coach at the time. It was a guy named Scott Ostrowski, and he was like, "Yeah, you got to come up and check it out." And it's like, okay, but these guys weren't varsity, and I didn't really know much about the team, so they got me into the cadet for a day program, and I think I must have been a sophomore or junior. I don't remember exactly what year. I remember we went to breakfast that morning, and then I went over to Dimick, and they put on this video, which must have been from, when we were being recruited for all that stuff, it must have been like a late 90s recruiting video. And I was the only one sitting in Dimick watching this video. And then I had an interview afterwards. What the film was like, they had this dude on like an 87 or an 82 or something like that. And they gave this whole thing of like, you graduate from here, you too can get 2 years afterwards, you can get command of your own ship. And I grew up huge fan of like PT-109 and JFK and all that. And I thought that was like unbelievably cool. I had no clue that was like even part of it. So in my interview, he pretty much said, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, "Yeah, I saw in the video that it said that, I can get command of my own ship 2 years after graduation." And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Great. Like, what do I have to do that?" It's like, "Well, come here, play lacrosse, be a good student, be a good athlete. You graduate, we'll send you down to Latin America. You hunt drug cartels. If you're good at that, you get command of your own ship." And I was like, "Awesome. Like, let me run that back for you one more time." So that's that's the path. He's like, "Yep, that's the path." And I was like, and everybody does that. And I remember walking out and like coming back down where I'd watched the video and just being like, man, that sounds like an unbelievably very cool and interesting experience. And because it took me so long to get in, because I was medically disqualified, I had to get a waiver. That really carried me through, because I just thought that's what people got to do. And when I tell this to other people, the punchline of that is that was my whole career.
Right. Yeah.
So it was pretty funny.
Full circle right there.
It was, man. Yeah.
You often talk about approaching the academy and life with an adventure mindset. What did that actually look like for you day to day as a cadet?
It should be about testing the fullness of yourself. And when I say adventure, I don't mean that you just go and, do random shit around the world. It's like the adventure of your lifetime is the thing that I think you're put on the planet to do, whether that's being a father or running a company or whatever. Like, but you got to find that thing. And the thing about the academy that I found to be really powerful was that it's wide open for you to be able to determine that. And that's why I very much believe in the model.
Do you think you got to that kind of realization quickly at the academy?
I mean, I met some guys here, like older grads, like some of the guys that were teaching here, also like total legends, Brian Krautler, McSorley, Tim Balunas. Some of these guys, I just thought that they were Jamie Smith. I just thought they were amazing people. And when I looked at their careers, I just thought it was the way that they approached life, I thought was so interesting. Like they're living with intent. They're not sleepwalking through this experience. They recognize that it's unique. They recognize that it's special, and they're having a blast. Like they're really enjoying like living intentionally. And I think that's a big part of it, where when you meet a military officer that's living intentionally, I think it's particularly a U.S. military officer, I think there's a particular type of like person and breed that comes from the academies of like very interested in scholarship, good athlete, cares about more than one topic, right? They're not so myopically focused on one thing. And these guys were all like that. And I wanted to be more like them. They think about life as a adventure to be lived, not an experience, not going through the motions. They're waking up every day. Like Krautler would always be like, don't count the days of the academy, make the days count. And when you're a cadet, you're like, dude, I mean, this is like the lamest thing, but then as you get older, right? And, your parents either get sick or you're going through that experience of like thinking through your own mortality. All of a sudden you're like, yeah, man, like that was a special time for me. And it was really important for the person that I ultimately want to become, or am becoming. And so things like the practices, the traditions, the schedule, all that stuff, I think ultimately over time you start to appreciate more if you enter into it that mindset of like, how am I going to use this time here, but also afterwards to like live very intentionally.
Absolutely. Love that answer. Also a great pitch for listening to your instructors. Is it?
The right
Imagine,
one, not the right ones.
Right ones.
The right ones.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
That's been said to me a few times by Commander.
The right ones.
So going off that statement, was there like an aha moment at the academy, like a specific thing that made you realize that? Like take advantage of the days, make them worth it, don't wish it away, see where you're going and have that goal in mind.
I don't know if there's an aha moment. I haven't thought about this one in a while, but I was on Eagle. I can't remember if we were on the West Coast. So this must have been my third class year. And this guy comes on, big beard, long hair, probably like, I mean, if I was 19, he was probably, unfortunately, he's probably like 30, he's probably younger than I am now, but he was really, like, this guy was really cool. He comes up and he just starts talking to me. And man, he had some crazy interesting stories. And this guy spent a huge amount of time talking to me. And then his classmates also, like 2 or 3 of them were there and he joined. And I remember having this conversation, like I hadn't interacted with somebody that was like that on fire for life, but just like had so much joy, not like going for like joy, man, like deep, like I'm interested in you. And by the way, my life is also pretty interesting, but I'm going to tell you some stories that are going to get you going. But like, I'm interested in this third class cadet that's like, serving me a watered down gin and tonic or a beer, right? Like, I was like, wow, this guy really cares about what I got going on. So there were definitely people like that I interacted with, that certainly made an impact. And I was like, yeah, that's a model that I would want to try and emulate.
I love that answer. I think it's a great point, and it gives us like a unique experience because that's what you're doing for me now. Right now, you're my mentor, as you could say, because you asked me questions all day about myself, and I thought it was great. And I was like so intrigued by what you had to say. We get to both share these experiences that just keep getting passed down.
I think that's the thing. It sounds kind of hokey at times. They do these programs between stuff, but like traditions matter. And I think as you get older and progress more, you're just like, look, there are certain things to keep sacred in life. And one of them, this is a formative experience. And so I have become more protective of, at least in my own mind and the way that I talk about the academy, of like that stuff is important because you legitimately do not know the impact that you have on people as you go through, right? Like I've already named a couple of people. I don't know their names. I couldn't pick, even if it was one of you guys, I wouldn't be able to remember, right? But I remember that impact. And so that's a daily thing, right? It's a daily thing. The way you engage with people, the way you talk to people is really important.
So then going off of that, cadets often worry a lot about things that really don't matter. Is there something that you think that they should let go of and not worry so much about?
Yes, a lot of it. I would say, and I said this to you today, like I think it is underrated in terms of relaxing here. Um, your generation specifically, cadets that are graduating now are just going into such an unbelievably chaotic period that there's so much of it that's unknowable about your career. So why do I say relax? Because cadets are learning how to manage stress here. And you'd be amazed at how many people can't handle very minimal amounts of stress, just like in life and in the world in general. And so the fact that this place is teaching you how to be able to have a full workload, get up every day, manage yourself, get a haircut, look presentable, speak to people with both reverence and respect. Believe it or not, like that is becoming in shorter and shorter supply. I mean, there's so much around your life that it's really unknowable of like what risks are going to come up and what you're actually going to be able to, what you're going to be faced with. And so there's just so much focus here on like, I got to do this and I have to get this particular tour and I need to be aligned with this thing if that doesn't happen. And that's just, a lot of that stuff is just total BS. Like, I think you should just focus on how you're developing and what you're getting out of the experience. And there's plenty of people, even some of my classmates who, I really revere, their careers were completely different than what they expected. So
Yeah, I think we've been doing better at educating the cadets as they leave here about like, you don't necessarily have to go to this boat in this district or in this sector, or you need to go to this prevention job to make sure that you get like the 20-year career that you want.
Yeah.
I think that we've improved in that regard, but what you're saying rings like very true overall in that we have a lot of people here stressed out about a lot of little things that once they graduate will not have mattered. And if they were to have just relaxed a little bit, potentially enjoyed some things more, or spent more time developing relationships or looking for a different type of adventure, that they could have gotten more out of this.
Yeah, this whole pervasive thing, and again, I don't know if it's still the case here, but this notion, oh, the academy sucks. It sucks to be here. I just think that's such crap. Like, I think people should. What you're getting here is just so much different than another experience. And again, I don't think it's just cadets. I think it goes all the way to the way that the place has been run for a long period of time, of this notion that like it needs to be really hard. It should be hard. Stress is good. Learning how to manage through all that stuff, having that shared experience, right? You don't want swap summer to be easy. The main thing that people take away from swap summer is that I learned something. I developed. It was hard. Like I got through it, right? And when you don't fully appreciate that when you're here, but it's like why would you want it to be super easy? But at the same time, you got to recognize, I think we should collectively recognize that like as a service too, like the Coast Guard could use more of that. It could use more people that want to take on risk and be under, pressure, because that's the key. That's what's being asked of us. That's what both the society and the country is going to continue to ask of military officers. And this is a place where you can test and learn around how to do all that. And I think that that's super important.
Well, for sure, you're a person that knows about taking risk and taking initiative. So let's go on to the Alaskan Mountaineering program. One of the best examples of initiative from your time here was when you started and
Yep.
did that program. Could you walk us through that?
Sure. I think I had been either home on spring break or something like that, and friends that were Navy were like, "Yeah, we just did this thing called the National Outdoor Leadership School, where during their summer they did this training program, and NASA astronauts did it, and Fortune 500 companies and all this." I just couldn't believe that we didn't have that. I thought it sounded absolutely incredible. I did a bit of research and I found this guy, another legend, Chris Bruno, amazing dude. And he was a part-time instructor for Knowles. So he was doing sailing courses, kayaking courses, mountaineering, all kinds of stuff. And I reached out and we just connected. And I think he came to the academy and we talked and he's like, dude, like, there's no way you're ever going to get a program like that through here. It's expensive. The academy doesn't take that much risk. The teachers won't be down with it. Your cadet summer program thing has like a full staff for it. Like, no one's going to ever pay attention to that. I was like, all right, well, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. Because at that point I was just so fascinated by it. So I kind of started like a advocacy campaign of sorts to be able to do that. So I just went through the process. If I remember, I put the program together. It got denied, I think, like 3 or 4 times. And then Andrew Marcial, who obviously is running the Alumni Association today, I'll never forget it. I came back to my desk and whatever the folder that it was, like blue or red, who knows, it was on my desk and it was approved. And the crazy thing was it was after the assignments had already gone out or the selections for the summer. So they gave me like a list of people that like hadn't been assigned yet for whatever reason. And they're like, yeah, you can take 4 people and they gave me the budget and they paid for everybody. And it was incredible, like really, really cool. And that must've been obviously in the spring since we hadn't been assigned yet. So yeah, we did Valdez, Alaska, and then 96 miles north into the tundra, 2 unnamed peaks, 4 glaciers. I can't remember if that expedition is 32 or 42 days. I can't remember, but over a month, basically.
42.
It was an extraordinary experience. Dave Boyle, Nate Newhart, Jen Proctor, there was the 4 of us. And then Chris, one of the ways we were able to get that through is that Chris was one of the instructors, Chris Bruno. And so, he did his tap and dance routine here. I actually remember now he came and did the pitch with me and he put his like reservist uniform on and, like did this full thing. So I'm sure he just like convinced, whoever was responsible, like, I'll take care of these guys. Little did they know that like, Knowles Alaska Mountaineering is pretty intense. It's like one of their most intense programs. And, it's hardcore, man. Like it's really hardcore. We flew to Anchorage and then they drove us to Palmer, Alaska, where they have the Knowles basically set up camp. It was us in the Naval Academy, 4 of us, and then 8 Naval Academy midshipmen, and then 3 instructors. And then, we trained for 2 to 3 days, I think, packed out, and then 9-hour bus ride to Valdez, Alaska, and then we took off. First, it was an absolutely extraordinary experience. Completely changed my life. First time that I'd really ever felt like deep fear, for sure. They teach you stuff, and then you go and do it, and it's not like, here, let me teach you how to like, snowshoe. I mean, you do that, but then there was also like building, snow anchors on, vertical faces that we're climbing. And it's like completely insane. Like I have no clue whether or not this is going to work, but they taught me this thing. I'm going to go do it. And Bruno would always just be like, yeah, man, that's the whole point. Like that's how you build skills. It works. You're like, oh, cool. I'll do it again. And that's how you build competency over time. So it was amazing. The last 5 days of that, if you perform well enough, the instructors let you go off on your own and finish the expedition by yourself. So like the last 5 days, the groups of 4 split and the instructors do their own. And then there's 3 different groups. So we had our own Coast Guard group. Never forget it, man. It was the summer solstice, June 21st, Alaska. We had just come off the glacier. We were down in like the tundra area where like the ice is like coming up against basically like the greenery. We set up camp next to this big river. It was incredible. It's like it's not getting dark obviously because it's the solstice, and you look behind you and it's this like kind of Lord of the Rings, like, glacier range back up into it, and huge kind of open big sky tundra out that way. And we had just gotten re-rationed by plane. And so we had this big pasta dinner, and Dave and I took a nap after dinner, like right next to the river. And I remember like just being like, man, this is awesome. You know, like this is really great. And then having also like, you know, I think get taught these lessons. I'm like, I'm the man. Like, this is pretty cool. Like we set this up, like this is working.
Yeah.
So like Dave's asleep and I like wake up and there's a grizzly bear, like a big grizzly bear coming across the river, probably like 40 to 50 yards away. So we had this 45-minute standoff with this grizzly bear that was walking into the sight line of the pasta. Actually, that we like the pot of pasta is like walking the sight line. So, you know, it was that kind of experience. You know, we got back and then I came here for the week. We worked on like our after action report. We made a documentary about it to try and keep the program going.
So I got to know, what was more fearful? Seeing the bear coming at you, thinking that it could maul you to death, or one of your anchor locks when climbing glaciers giving out?
It's a good one, man. The scarier part was we got stuck in a blizzard, and the blizzard came when we were going across a crevasse field, and a crevasse field on a glacier is really dangerous because they can go like almost a mile deep. And Knowles has had students die before. They've lost students into crevasses, where as you're going across, if it drops, and you're kind of like your body like kind of falls into it, and then you're done. Like, because basically you just go down and you can drag the rest of the line because you're all roped up together. And we were skiing down through a crevasse field and we got hit by a blizzard. The instructors didn't look incredibly stoked. It's not like they were like, this is a great like leadership opportunity, man. They were like, this is not good. And it was sketchy. I mean, like there was parts of it that were kind of like creaky, and the blizzard lasted probably a couple hours. So that one more so just because the snow anchors on the face, that's designed, right? Like they're picking spots. They know there's not going to be an avalanche, and it's a significant climb. And look, they briefed us on all the bears and everything else, but the blizzard one was not fun for sure. So,
well, that wasn't the only thing you created here. You also created and played in a band.
True.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. I like to have a good time, and my friends like to have a good time too. And I love music, and I played in a band in high school, and a bunch of our friends, we all just started playing music. My best friend from here, Vince Caesar, he and I were just jamming at night, you know, after like late, you know, we'd finish homework and just start playing music together. And then we figured out that our friends also played instruments, which was pretty fun. And so yeah, I wrote a bunch of songs, and then we arranged a bunch of songs to be kind of like rock, like bar rockers, basically. And then Nick Devine, who was a legend, classmate of mine, you know, one of these guys, like I think he was probably, I forget how old Nick was when we started, but I think he was like I think he was like 21 as a fourth class. Like
That sounds right.
yeah, I think so. Like, cause he had gone to junior college and all that stuff. So he knew like all the bar owners in downtown New London. And so Nick had this idea of like, look, man, like let's just, you know, let's rent out a couple bars and like play gigs. And we're like, all right, that sounds awesome. So played Roadhouse a couple times, and the deal that we cut with the Roadhouse people is like, we'll do themes, and if the cadets come in the theme, you know, they get 50-cent beers or dollar beers or whatever. We played Stonington a couple times. We did a couple other smaller shows, but then our big thing was, you know, we had like 2 really solid sets worked out, you know, like good, fun rockers. Did you ever come?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to.
I was trying to keep the name out of the thing, but
It was going to be unavoidable.
yeah.
I've been
I was going to keep it as a secret,
yeah,
but
more than one show.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, look, it was supposed to be a joke. The whole point is that it was supposed to be sarcastic. But anyway, we worked out a couple like really, I thought like pretty decent sets for being a dumb college band.
They were good, Kev.
And
they were good.
We were not bad. There were some teachers that came too.
Oh yeah,
Chris LaMonica.
They're popular shows. Like I think you're underselling. Like a lot of people came to these whenever there was.
Well, we had one at Roadhouse that caused a problem because so many people came from Conn College and from here that they had to open up all the doors to Roadhouse. Roadhouse, I don't think is there anymore, right?
No.
So they had to open up all the doors onto what is that, Bank Street, and so like there's like a lot of people like out on the street. They had to like shut the street off. It was pretty wild. And then once we got the sets really tight, we did an actual gig at this place called The Exchange. We hired a real production company. This guy like came in from Hartford, like full sound check, the full thing. We played, my brother came up from Princeton to like play with us because we need another guitar player. And It was awesome, man. It was really fun. And, it was like one of these things where there's absolutely nothing wrong with starting a band and going and playing bars in New London. So,
Love it.
yeah.
I think that's awesome. You got any of those recordings you could share with me?
We've looked for them on like an old iPad. We recorded a couple songs. They're probably out there. I mean, some of the ones that we did sounded absolutely terrible because we practiced in the basement of Leamy in the band room. We would go down there at like 9:30 or 10 and practice, and the acoustics in there, believe it or not, are not very good. It sounded pretty rough.
So what did playing in his band teach you that the Academy didn't?
I mean,
Let loose, have fun.
Look, I think you can make your experience here into something that is very fun, very challenging, but you got to have ways to blow off steam, right? I think that the notion is that if you're taking, 21 credit hours and you're up at 5:30 and for formation and you're going to bed at 1, like there's a reason why cadets flame out and burn out and struggle, right? Because they enter into it with the wrong mindset. And I think all of us, look, everybody in that band is an athlete. All of us like legitimately enjoyed spending time together. And so like, why shouldn't you make that experience more, more memorable?
I think you also hit on a thing that I talk a lot about. It's like why I do those extra credit assignments in my class where I have you guys make videos and do these things. There's fewer and fewer opportunities given time constraints for these creative chances.
Totally.
Like to really flex your creative muscles,
Totally.
to be in a band, to make a video, to work in ambiguity and come up with something completely on your own out of your own brain.
Yeah.
And there's so few opportunities to be really, really creative here because this isn't the same type of liberal arts college that you would have gotten at Bowdoin or Bates or Colby.
Yeah.
So here, when you have those chances, you have to really seize them and make the most out of them. Otherwise, they will disappear and you'll get sucked into these 21 credit hours, 2 hours of sports.
Yeah.
And then I got to also stay fit and do these other things. And all of a sudden, you leave the fleet and you don't have any hobbies and you haven't done anything fun.
And you'd be surprised when you start doing that stuff. I mentioned some of the like teachers and instructors that came. They were super into it, man. They were like, this is what we want you guys to be doing. Then when you realize that there were other instructors that were like, why aren't you guys shining your shoes? It's like, well, look at my shoes. They're also shined. They're like, well, yeah, but why aren't you doing this? And that's the balance between those two things, right? Like there's the structure and the rigor and that constant threat of like, that you're not doing everything correctly versus learning to kind of be within like risk and ambiguity, which I think is pretty fun.
Always developing there.
Yeah.
So now I want to talk more about your civilian life, right? Like a lot of cadets and military members assume that the hardest part of getting through the academy is actually making your way through. But you said that leaving the military environment can be even more challenging. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, you're starting over. When I got out, it was still pretty, I don't know. I think it felt like at the time, like it was still kind of like the vet bro thing was not really out there yet. Some of the people that are now very prevalent on social media and the rest of that did not exist. There were people that you could look at. A lot of them went to grad school, and you kind of were able to follow that pretty closely. But other than that, in terms of moving into like a field that I'm in now, there was not a lot of people to look at that did that. And the ones that did, they all did it differently. So I think the hardest part was just realizing that it's not even back to, you're not an ensign, you're back to being basically a cadet. And for a lot of people, that's really challenging, right? They assign a lot of self-worth because it's worth it, right? You graduated from this place, you had professional achievements as an officer. And then, people I think expect the corporate world to value that. And sometimes they do. But even if you talk to 06s and flags that get out, people are like, they pretty much hire you for your contacts and for your experience, but not necessarily for like a functional role, right? Like if you get your law degree while you're in the Coast Guard, you still have a deficit because what's been happening around you while you've been a Coast Guard officer is that they've been networking within a law community that is not yours. You go to business school through the Coast Guard, all your classmates that are in business school are working toward a particular set of objectives that don't apply to you because you're in the Coast Guard. So that part of it, I think people don't realize is that it's hyper competitive. It's only gotten more competitive. And increasingly now being a veteran, having a service academy degree with a master's, for instance, is not as special. You have people from every service, every type of experience that are following this particular track. And so as a result, like when you start over, you're really starting over. And a big part of that is your network, because your network, particularly from here, I think we have a very strong private sector network, but it's not something that is talked about here, right? We don't talk to cadets and say, if you want to get out at 5 and you want to go do something else, here's a path by which to do that. Here's how to think about building your career in that regard, right? It's very much here, we're going to plan out your Coast Guard career for you. It was very challenging because there's no rule book, there's no handbook, there's no like, great, do this, then that. And whereas in the Coast Guard, you're trying to learn that process and navigate that to build a career that you're excited about. When you get out, it's just kind of, it's pretty much wide open. And so as a result, a lot of people, I think, don't totally realize how challenging that can be, and that you have to continue to take risk. And by the time that people are usually getting out around that time, they have kids, they're married, they have less options in terms of being able to do that. I had a lot of optionality when I got out, which allowed me to take more risk.
So after separating from the Coast Guard, you had your first job in Stockholm. You described that as a struggle. What experience was difficult at the beginning?
I got this fellowship at Georgetown through the Wallenberg family, which was an extraordinary opportunity. I got into this program at the School of Foreign Service called International Business Diplomacy, which is like the honors program for the School of Foreign Service. And so I went to Sweden in between my first and second year of grad school, and then had the opportunity to go back. And, look, work, and the firm that I went to work for has become, I think I mean, I'm an alum, but technically a senior advisor to them. We are like the second largest firm in the world at this point. And when I got there, it was about 46 billion under management, I think. And the company was not preparing at that point in time for IPO, but was like clearly moving very quickly. And look, I didn't have those skills. I hadn't gone to Goldman or to McKinsey, and all the other associates that had come in all had that experience. And I showed up in, a foreign country. And the reason I went to Stockholm is that's where their headquarters is. And, I had been in command of a ship, and my peers had done 2 years at Goldman, so it's like the seniors at that firm were like, what do we do with this guy? Where it's like, he's been a patrol boat skipper and has this way of kind of both communicating and approaching, but wants to get more into the investing side of it. So, trying to both redefine what I wanted to do, and then also, find a set of new mentors and new people that I could build with, was hard. And it was also a foreign country, and, there's a whole other stuff that we could talk about that. But again, it was a extraordinary window into a world that I was like, yep, this is exactly the direction. It's going to be really, really hard, and it's going to be kind of back to fourth class year again, but let's let it rip.
Well, I know you had a very short time to prove yourself there. It was about 6 months, right? How did you go about approaching that?
I got this opportunity from, speaking of mentors, my old boss and partner saw a strategy that I built in a different part of the firm. And, he said to me, look, I think you really should think about trying to apply this more into our side of the business, which was the venture capital arm of the firm. And I didn't really think about myself as a tech investor at all. I was not a deep tech person. When I say deep tech, I mean more I didn't think about tech as the leading part of it. I thought infrastructure as an asset class was more interesting. But the technology side of what they were doing, I couldn't believe some of the things that they were starting to look at. And this guy, Ted, who's a dear friend of mine now, and it was my boss, said, I don't really know how to approach investing in some of these companies. You're looking at neomorphic computing, quantum computing, early forms of AI hardware, big mobility plays where it's technology, but it's also big kind of scaled infrastructure. And he said, look, the people I'm used to dealing with are, software, fintech. It's a pretty kind of known quantity. The founder type that you're looking for in venture in that regard is one thing. But these companies, they have former generals on their boards, and they, have scientists, and they have to work with the government a lot, and the sales cycle is different. And how do we diligence it? So he just gave me a chance. He gave me this, as you say, a 6-month window to both work on a strategy and pitch it to the team. And that went well, and I just kind of never looked back. I mean, it was an experience I've had. It totally bit me like a bug. Once I started to work on that, it was man, this is what I want to do for a long time. And I would stay up all night reading about the space. I thought it was unbelievably fascinating. And then I had a small stroke of luck in that regard, which is that COVID happened, where I could spend a lot of time learning, because it wasn't as the world massively changed, and I could just learn a lot. And so that period of time was like really helpful to be able to catch up, almost to be able to kind of get more knowledge and learn what I wanted to do.
So today you're working on something much bigger, New Industrial Co. What problems are you trying to solve with New Industrial Co.?
Yeah, the New Industrial Corporation is the distillation of what that problem set was. Effectively, you have this kind of cleavage that's happened within both technology, but also within capital markets, where you have people building technology, and then when you think about the technology that goes to how you get something to like the size of like what the governments pay attention to. So, for instance, if you've ridden on Amtrak recently, there's the new trains which are integrating forms of software and maybe a new engine, right? Those are forms of technology, but getting them into a kind of scaled system is very, very difficult. Largely because when you start new technology, there's not a historical cash flow for later stage and larger investors to look at, because later stage investors are not trying to take any risk on the tech. And frequently they're not trying to take a lot of risk on the business. They're underwriting to how much cash the business produces and over how long of a period of time. And then how can they grow the amount of cash that the business creates? So when you're starting a new technology, even if it's the best technology in the world, it's not, again, it hasn't generated any cash because it's new. What happened within these technologies is that there's this growing mismatch between people that fund early stage technology and then the capital that's actually needed to get that technology to scale. That came at the same time that the knowledge economy exploded. So the last 30 years, it's been extremely profitable to fund software, fintech, but primarily software. And software is incredible. And it was the predominant form of investing in venture capital. That's not where venture capital started. Venture capital started primarily around working with the government. Some of the biggest programs that started venture were about missile control systems. The early internet was really obviously a government project. And so the blend between how do I build technology that's physical and then get it to scale became in our field kind of an unsolved problem, and one that increasingly, as the crises of the world continue to converge and become like almost overlapping. So national security and energy used to be kind of two disparate things. Now they're very much the same. You think about like workforce displacement due to AI. Those are actually like that's now a national security issue, as well as an energy issue, as well as a institutional stability issue. And people used to think about them almost as kind of various pockets to look at and invest in. And investors started to kind of freak out because they're like, wow, like I need this technology to work. It needs to work. Then it needs to produce cash. Then I need it to get to scale where I need billions of dollars to be able to come into it, to be able to get it to scale. And there was no kind of like blending between all of that. And so we worked on this at my prior firm, just thinking through very carefully like how we thought you could solve that problem. It's a very, very difficult problem to work on. A lot of people have tried different approaches to it. And what we're doing with the New Industrial Corporation is that we've built effectively an investment company that does two things. We invest in technology businesses, but then we also serve as an infrastructure project developer where we actually work with them versus just investing. So think about it of like, rather than writing a check and then having the companies figure out how to get to scale, we kind of take them through that process to get them to scale where we build the projects with them. But what's increasingly happened over the last 5 years is that both our governments, but also our societies are demanding that these technologies work because we need them. Or the old systems are creaking and not really working in the way that we expected them to do. And as a result, like we need new technologies and we need them to proliferate very quickly. And that is a both capital as well as a company building problem. And that's what we're doing.
How did you go about building out a team to solve this problem, right? Because I'm understanding where your background came from, but then you needed to not only have people that were wise in investing and could do their diligence on these different investments, but also now we're talking about needing someone who understands production management, right? And how to build infrastructure and also is able to lead other people through that process. So how did you put that team together?
I appreciate the question greatly because I thought about it quite a bit. You need people that have built a lot of stuff, and you need a level of, I think, emotional maturity to be able to operate as a partnership. So my principal co-founder that I met first is a guy named Matt Cody, and Matt and I kind of said, look, what we really need is a team that has been contiguous. So really the guys that he had worked with before. So we thought about it as almost like an inverted pyramid, rather than having me as the CEO and then kind of a bunch of junior people, and then, kind of your like mid-grade officers, if you will, and then like one or two people that work directly with me. It was like, no, we want to have basically a flat partnership with me as the CEO, where everybody on our team has lived this problem. Whether it's on the early stage side, funding companies and realizing that they run into this wall, or guys that have built, like Matt's team had built convention centers and highways and hospitals and airports and all this stuff. But when you build that, you're looking for new technology to put into it. And it was very difficult for them to see how that was going to happen, number one. And then they're watching all this really interesting technology get built, but not actually be able to, get into these larger and larger projects. And so it took us, almost 2.5 years to really design the model and argue through it. And it was that kind of tinkering and iteration to get to that point. But you can't do that with a team that hasn't lived it. Like, you need people with like really have gone through that process. And that's the team that we wanted to put together, and multivariate. I mean, Peter Meyer, who's one of our co-founders, former member of Congress, who's on science, space, and technology, foreign affairs, homeland security. Peter's seen this problem from the government side. So he understands, hey, look, we don't solve this, this is going to become an existential risk here. And we need that perspective. Austin, who's also on our team, is a former, hedge fund trader who saw this happening in the markets from a public side. And he switched over to the private side, specifically around this thesis. So I look for people that are completely obsessed, like to the point of being delusional about something. And I think the only way to build big stuff is to be slightly delusional.
So then, what do you find exciting about what you do? Why do you enjoy what you do?
I mean, the only way for me to put it is that, like, I don't know how long I'm going to be on the planet, but what I'm working on right now is is what I feel like I was put on the planet to work on. Like, I'm pretty sure of that. I don't have kids, so for me, this is the thing that this is my life, and I'm really grateful that I'm in a position to even try it. It's hard. Like, what we're doing is very challenging. And however long I'm on the planet, the fact that this is the contribution that I get to make is like, I wake up every day and I look forward to the next day. I love to read, so I love the stuff that we get to read. And then the people are so interesting. I mean, it's so varied, right? And particularly now that the crises are converging, government people that are interested in climate adaptation, that are interested in, what's happening around the world in terms of the spheres of influence that obviously this current administration and others past and in the future are going to have to deal with. All that stuff is converging into one. So it's intellectually really interesting. It's very challenging. And, I'm just really grateful that I even get to be a small part of it and work on it. You get a limited time on the planet. I could be dead tomorrow. So the fact that I get that experience for me is one that I don't take very lightly.
What does success look like for you?
In terms of the Nick?
Yes.
I personally believe that this whole thing we're working on is existential for Western civilization. I know that sounds very grandiose to say, but I could spend the next couple hours talking about why I feel that way. And there are a lot of other founders and builders that feel that way, and investors. I really think so. I don't think the West is going to be able to offer its citizens very much if we don't figure this part out. And I've talked about this in other formats, but it is that level of like kind of existential risk that's happening. So if I could contribute to that, even in a small amount, I would consider that as a thing. My family has a home on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and Washington's aide-de-camp is buried in that town, a guy named Tench Tillman, and he did an enormous amount, and Washington wrote his epitaph, and it ends with the fact that, and above all, he was a good man. The guy died at 42, and he was living in a period of time where like the country was forming and we weren't really sure what was happening. And like, nobody knows who Tench Tillman is except for the people that it has value to, right? And so I don't really think about it at all as like, if this or that, or, how much money or how big the firm can be. It's like, I have those metrics. I know what I'm driving toward, but I think if it was like, if I got to do this for another 5 years, and I would just want it to have been that I added to the outcome, in some way. It's very easy to get lost in like, this is about like me, or, the big opportunity that I'm going after, the firm that I'm building. And at the end of the day, like, you're probably not going to be remembered. And so as a result, like, if your impact is on kind of like the people that you're engaging with, the problems that you're working on, and just the way that you can come into the world and interact, that's as much as I can equate it. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people that try and focus on like one or two like very large, like quantifiable moments, once you apply a bigger time series to that, it just becomes unknowable. So it's kind of the classic, like almost like Buddhist mantra of just being in the present, like trying to approach every single day with that same type of thing, right? Like kind of back to where we started the conversation of like, how do I enter into every day? Like, am I living directly now with the people in front of me, trying to deliver the impact that I can today?
Mhm.
And if that compounds over a period of time and the series is long enough, you can hopefully impact the outcome, in some way, shape, or form. I think if you have the sense that you get to live on purpose, or that, like, you have the opportunity to work on something that matters to you, whether it's what I'm doing, or, being a husband or a father or wife, or leading the academy or teaching a class, like if that's the thing that gets you going, whatever it is, man, like whatever the thing is that just gets you absolutely into that zone and driving toward it, I think that that's the only way to define it, because otherwise you can pull at it from so many different directions, and it's almost impossible to come up with an answer that's relevant to anybody other than you.
Let's finish with a quick lightning round for cadets here. What's one thing every fourth class should focus on this year?
Appreciate the suck. Just enjoy the stress. Enjoy the stress. It's there for a reason, and try and laugh at the end of every day. And pretty soon you'll be like, wow, that was pretty silly that I thought that was so important. To be honest,
I like that. What's overrated at the academy?
do you want a controversial one?
Yes.
I like it.
I think the rivalry with Kings Point is so dumb.
I agree, especially from a wrestling.
I think like we should beat them in every sport. I mean, I think the Fenway Park thing was really cool, but like, and I wish I'd been able to go. I think it's like we should just beat that team in every sport by like 100 points. I think the athletic department should be focused on how we should, beat Air Force. Like if Navy and West Point is like too big, okay, fine, but like let's figure out how to beat Air Force in sports, or like MIT's in the NUMEC. Like let's make MIT our rival. Like, I don't know why we need to have a little Army Navy game. I think it makes the whole thing feel kind of parochial, but like I thought the Fenway Park thing was really cool. That's the first time that I was like, yeah, man, this is the level of ambition that we should go for. But then we should beat those guys by 100 and then figure out how to beat Air Force at something. So
great. So now what's underrated?
I think the location here is very underrated. I think like, we were talking about this at lunch, like Mystic, Stonington, surfing in Matunic. I mean, being on the surf team club here was like absolutely incredible experience. This part of the country, I think, is really cool.
What's one risk all cadets should take before they graduate?
Maybe see how like close you can cut it getting back from college on time before TAPS. Like, I don't know, try and cut it to like 30, like as you're coming to like 30 seconds, like time it, like 30 seconds, you're like coming through the gate, like as close as possible, so that you're like coming into your, and because like what's the worst that happens? You get like 8 demerits.
Something like that. It's nothing too serious.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're not going to get kicked out for that. So it's like, have a great time. Don't do dumb stuff. Like 10 seconds, like right back into your room,
Soak up all the good time you can. Now I want to go into our last question of the day.
Sure.
So if you were the recruiter today, how would you pitch the academy, considering the path that you were on and how the recruiter approached you?
This is a part about the underselling or the underrated nature of the academy. Like this place has this constant thing hanging over it of like, well, it's just the Coast Guard, or it's just this small school. And like this place, I mean, all the attributes that it has, the types of people that it can attract, anybody that comes here gets an opportunity to prepare for a world, particularly in higher education, that is getting absolutely torn apart. And in a lot of ways for good reason, because the world is becoming so unbelievably complex that a liberal arts education, for instance, is going under an enormous amount of reformation, and in a way that like doesn't factor in as many ways as I would like what it means to be a citizen. And citizenry within a democratic economy and democratic structure that we have is like, I think, going to be a defining feature going forward. Like people that actually understand what it means to contribute. Like, why do I do anything? It's because I'm tied to this social pact, right? There's like the core values and even the Constitution, right? Like the fact that we have a system, our society, and then down to service academies teach a set of like, you're becoming a better, more full version of yourself. You're abiding by a set of things that are kind of written down, and you get to learn all that here while also getting a degree. And then afterwards you get to go not only serve and test yourself, but you have a completely unique experience in a world that is going to be totally upside down. I don't know why service academies aren't more directly in demand at this point, particularly in a time when, so much stuff is changing, and yet the core tenets which have built both our country, but then also like what I hope and pray will be the future of the country, like that should be the selling point to anybody. This is an incredible foundation to be able to even build the next phase of your life. And again, all of that is unknowable. But if you're going to think about a foundation for, a world that you're going into a great power conflict, obviously AI, workforce displacement, our institutions are creaking. Would you rather take a bet on a school that has kind of had a rough go at it, particularly recently, of trying to show that value? Or can this place rise to the occasion of being the type of institution where you attract people that are curious, risk-taking, bold, like adventure, think through problems in a multidisciplinary way, are okay with a little bit of failure because this place allows you to have a little bit of failure, and then go out and actually put it to work? Come on, man. What else are we doing here? Like that's the whole point. And it's your life. You should take it seriously, And if you're training to be an officer in what is still the greatest country in the world, like that's an incredible opportunity. And there's a great responsibility to that. And in a world where most of your peers are going to try and figure out, either how to make money or how to avoid being, massively displaced, I don't think there's a greater pitch at this point.
Greg, thanks for joining us today and sharing your story. To everyone listening, remember that opportunities at the Academy often start with initiative. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe.
That was our conversation for today. Thank you for joining us here in Studio 1887. Please stick around for a few more minutes as I spotlight what your impact looks like in action here at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. In a short closing segment, we're calling the Alumni Impact Interlude. Financial support from the Alumni Association is a game changer for the overall cadet experience. Learn more from the following cadet who is directly benefiting from your support. It's time for the Alumni Impact Interlude. In February 2025, the Alumni Association hosted an alum wrestling weekend and unveiled an amazing display that outlines the history of the program and its many accomplishments. To talk about this project, I'm sitting here with the Academy's first ever 4-time All-American in wrestling record setter, Carl DeGiorgio, who just wrapped up his undefeated regular season and a 5th place finish at Nationals. Carl, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me what this wall means to you.
Yeah, I mean, the wall is really cool. It's really just a testament to the progress our program's made over the last 5 years and even before that with Coach Eldridge. It's really cool. It's segmented, so it's by era almost. So Coach Eldridge is on the left side and all his wrestlers and all the awards that they have gotten over the years. And then since Coach Pratlin's come in, they have another wall for that. And you can go and see my face up there, luckily.
Awesome.
But it is really cool, and it gives our guys something to look up to and something to walk by every day and have a little pride.
So you're wrapping up your career. You've been here for 4 years, wrestling all 4 of those years, and the wall was really only installed in the last year of your career. So describe to folks who haven't been back what it is. You show up to practice and what? You're walking down the hallway.
Yeah, so it's right outside a wrestling room in the hallway, and you just walk by it, and it's got pictures. It's got pretty much every All-American that's ever come through the program. We have our national champion up there, Chase Randall. And it's really cool. And it's got a bunch of quotes about, how much wrestling's meant to the alumni that have come through here and through the program.
Let's talk about those quotes because
Yeah.
Spar Life was sort of the driving focus for that wall. What does Spar Life mean?
Yeah, so Spar Life is a little buzzword that we use in our room, and it's kind of our motto for our team. And what it really means is it's a rendition of Spar, Semper Paratus, always ready. And really what it means to us is conducting yourself and living your life in a way that you're always ready for anything that comes forward in your life. So you don't have to get ready. You live your life in a way that you're always ready to face anything that comes in your way.
And how is that particularly important for someone who's a wrestler?
I mean, it just means always being prepared, being in shape, taking care of the small things, your diet, the way you sleep, conditioning, that sort of stuff.
Super disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. So the wall was installed. It's right outside the wrestling room. I was there for the event. It was amazing. There was a bunch of alums that were back. So many alums were involved in this project. So I want to shout out. I can't list them all because there were so many of them, but there was a concerted group of focused alums who were really part of the sort of the committee pulling it all together. But, that space is in the basement of Ballard. So it had traditionally been really dark, sort of dreary, not all that interesting. And this mural is so colorful. It's really got all of the sort of Coast Guard colors going. I mean, it really sort of changes the whole dynamic in that space.
I think it even makes it it's like a wrestling hallway down there now. It's really pretty cool.
Yeah.
Every time someone walks by, they're going to know about Coast Guard wrestling as soon as they walk by and the history and the legacy of the program.
What would it have meant to you were you recruited for wrestling when you came here? So, what would it have meant to you to see something like that when you were, a senior or a junior in high school?
I mean, it would obviously I like the program and like the facility because I came here, but I think it would definitely show me about what this program means and what it stands for. And it's a good representation of that. And I think it would do wonders for recruiting for sure.
Yeah. So that wall, that weekend, alums were back. It was more than just the dedication of that wall. What was it like to connect with those alumni in that wrestling program that has a history that stretches, 50 years or more?
It was really awesome, having the alumni up in Ballard Hall and getting all rowdy for us, going out on the mat. It was a lot, and it was really awesome to see that support from them for sure.
One of the other things that our alums support for wrestling is the funding for an assistant coach position. You would have benefited directly from having those assistant coaches in the room. What does it mean to have that full-time assistant coach helping you with your training and your overall career in wrestling?
It's absolutely invaluable to our program for recruiting. Coach Foley does so much. Recruiting, he runs our entire social media page. It's definitely a full-time job, and having him as a full-time employee is absolutely invaluable. There's no way we could even be as successful as we are without him in that position.
Do you have any closing words for your, to that encapsulate your wrestling career here at Coast Guard, or any words for anyone who may want to pursue wrestling here at the Coast Guard Academy?
I mean, I would say do it. It's awesome. It's a brotherhood, and get to know the guys on the team, and the support that we have from the Alumni Association is incredible, and absolutely thank you for that and all you guys do. So, yeah.
Carl, congratulations on an amazing wrestling career and soon to be graduated and out in the fleet. I wish you the best of luck. And again, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to our alumni community for your continued engagement. You are what keep this community strong and thriving, especially our members. Membership in your alumni association matters. It empowers connections between our alumni and the Academy to develop thriving and enduring relationships. It supports state-of-the-art and margin of excellence enhancements for the Corps of Cadets. And membership also comes with some pretty cool benefits, like access to professional development and certifications, unique connection opportunities to grow your network, discounts and savings when welcoming back the whole family for homecoming, and so much more. Your membership even supports projects like this podcast. So stay connected, stay up to date, and ensure that your ties to the Long Blue Line remain strong. Become a member today at cgaalumni.org/1887. If this conversation resonated with you, please subscribe, rate, and share with your network so these stories can continue to reach and connect our community. Until next time.